For decades, we were told that weight gain was about willpower, about calories, about moving more and eating less. But what if the real battle has been happening silently in your bloodstream this whole time? What if the hormone controlling your ability to burn fat has been elevated from breakfast to bedtime, blocking your progress no matter how disciplined you try to be? That hormone is insulin. Insulin is not evil. It is essential for survival. But chronically elevated insulin is the metabolic lock that keeps your body trapped in fat storage mode. Every time you eat carbohydrates, especially refined ones, your blood glucose rises. In response, your pancreas releases insulin to shuttle that glucose into cells. That's normal physiology. But here's the part most people never hear. Insulin doesn't just move sugar, it tells your body to stop burning fat. Research in metabolic biochemistry has shown that insulin directly inhibits lipolysis, the process where stored fat is broken down for energy. As long as insulin remains elevated, fat burning is effectively paused. Now imagine eating carbohydrates every few hours, cereal in the morning, a sandwich at lunch, a snack in the afternoon, pasta at night. Each spike triggers another wave of insulin. Over time, cells become less responsive, a condition known as insulin resistance. The pancreas compensates by producing even more insulin. Studies have shown that insulin resistance precedes type 2 diabetes by years, sometimes decades. And during that silent progression, weight gain becomes easier, hunger becomes stronger, and energy becomes unstable. This is not a failure of character, it is biochemistry. When insulin stays high, your body cannot efficiently access stored fat, even if you are in a calorie deficit. Clinical studies comparing low carbohydrate diets to low fat diets consistently demonstrate greater reductions in insulin levels and often superior improvements in triglycerides, HDL cholesterol, and markers of metabolic syndrome in the low carb groups. Why? Because carbohydrate restriction lowers the primary trigger for insulin release. Zero carb foods take this principle to its logical extreme. When you remove carbohydrates almost entirely, blood glucose remains stable and insulin secretion drops significantly. Protein does stimulate insulin modestly, yes, but nowhere near the magnitude of carbohydrate-induced spikes. And when protein is consumed alongside fat, the glycemic response is minimal. In low insulin states, the liver begins converting fatty acids into ketones, an alternative fuel source that can power your brain, your muscles, and your heart. Nutritional ketosis has been studied for over a century, originally as a treatment for epilepsy, and modern research shows it can improve insulin sensitivity and reduce fasting insulin levels. When insulin falls, lipolysis increases, fat cells open, stored energy becomes available. Hunger hormones like ghrelin stabilize. Many patients report something profound. For the first time in years, they are not obsessed with their next meal. That is not magic. That is hormonal relief. Elevated insulin is also linked to increased inflammation, fatty liver disease, and higher triglyceride levels. Lowering insulin through carbohydrate restriction has been shown in numerous studies to reduce liver fat and improve markers of metabolic health. The shocking truth is that many people struggling with weight are not overeating because they lack discipline. They are eating because high insulin and unstable blood sugar are driving relentless hunger signals. When you build meals from zero-carb foods, meat, eggs, fish, natural fats, you minimize the stimulus for insulin. Blood sugar remains steady. Energy becomes consistent. The metabolic switch flips from storage to burning. And once your body regains access to its own stored fuel, something shifts psychologically as well as physiologically. You stop fighting your biology. You start working with it. Lower insulin is not a trend. It is a return to metabolic balance. And when insulin falls, the body does what it was designed to do all along: burn fat, stabilize energy, and heal from the inside out. For years, we were told to fear fat and to moderate protein, as if the very foods that built our muscles and brains were somehow the enemy, yet modern metabolic research is revealing a startling truth. The combination of high-quality protein and natural fat may be the most stabilizing force your metabolism has ever known. Every time you eat a meal dominated by refined carbohydrates, your blood sugar surges, insulin spikes, and within hours that surge collapses, often leaving you shaky, irritable, and hungry again. This is not a lack of willpower. It is a predictable biological crash. Studies in glycemic variability show that rapid rises and falls in blood glucose are directly associated with increased hunger and higher calorie intake at subsequent meals. Your body is not weak. It is responding to instability. Now imagine a different scenario. A meal centered on protein and fat, steak and eggs, salmon with butter, chicken thighs with the skin, enters the digestive system slowly. Protein stimulates satiety hormones like peptide YY and GLP-1, both shown in controlled trials to reduce appetite and prolong fullness. Fat delays gastric emptying, meaning food leaves your stomach more gradually, extending that feeling of satisfaction for hours. Instead of a spike and crash, you experience a steady release of energy. Clinical research comparing high protein diets to standard protein diets consistently shows greater satiety, reduced overall calorie intake, and improved body composition in higher protein groups. Protein is not just fuel, it is a signal. It tells your body to preserve lean muscle mass, especially during weight loss. This matters because muscle is metabolically active tissue. The more muscle you preserve, the higher your resting energy expenditure remains. Studies on dieting individuals reveal a harsh reality. Low protein, low fat calorie restriction often leads to significant muscle loss, slowing metabolism over time. But when protein intake is adequate, muscle preservation improves dramatically, protecting metabolic rate. Fat, too, has been misunderstood. Natural dietary fats, especially saturated and monounsaturated fats from whole foods, do not inherently cause metabolic damage when consumed in the absence of excessive carbohydrates. In fact, low carbohydrate, higher fat diets have repeatedly demonstrated improvements in triglycerides and increases in HDL cholesterol in randomized controlled trials. When carbohydrates are restricted, fat becomes a primary fuel source, and the body adapts by increasing its capacity to oxidize fatty acids. This metabolic flexibility, your ability to switch between fuels, is a hallmark of metabolic health. When you rely heavily on carbohydrates, that flexibility diminishes. You become dependent on frequent glucose intake. But when fat and protein form the foundation of your meals, your body relearns how to access stored energy. The result is not just weight change, it is energy stability. Many individuals transitioning to lower carbohydrate, higher protein, and fat diets report a striking reduction in cravings. This is not anecdotal fantasy. It aligns with hormonal shifts. Stable blood sugar reduces reactive hypoglycemia, which is a powerful driver of sugar cravings. Higher protein intake has been shown to reduce late-night snacking and decrease activity in brain regions associated with food reward in imaging studies. That means fewer mental battles, fewer obsessive thoughts about food. You are not constantly negotiating with hunger. And perhaps most powerful of all, fat and protein together create what processed carbohydrates rarely do: true satiety. Not the temporary fullness of a bloated stomach, but the deep biological signal that says you are nourished. When that signal is strong, decision-making changes. You stop grazing. You stop chasing quick fixes. You stop living on the roller coaster of spikes and crashes. Instead, you move through your day fueled by steady energy, preserved muscle, balanced hormones, and a metabolism that is finally working with you instead of against you. In a world addicted to sugar highs and terrified of fat, the quiet stability of protein and natural fat may be the most radical act of metabolic restoration you can make. And once your body experiences that stability, you may never want to go back. We live in an age of infinite food options, yet metabolic disease has never been more common, and that is not a coincidence. The modern supermarket contains tens of thousands of products, most engineered for hyperpalatability, convenience, and profit, not metabolic stability. Research published in major medical journals has linked ultra-processed food consumption to higher risks of obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and even all-cause mortality. The more complex and engineered our food environment becomes, the more chaotic our biology responds. Every flavor enhancer, hidden sugar, and refined starch adds another variable to your metabolic equation. And here is the problem with too many variables. The human brain fatigues. Decision fatigue is real. Psychological research shows that the more choices people must make throughout the day, the worse those decisions become over time. When your diet requires constant tracking, substitutions, calculations, and label reading, compliance drops. Not because you are lazy, but because your brain is overwhelmed. Simplicity is not boring, it is neurologically protective. When you narrow your food choices to a small group of metabolically stable staples, real protein, natural fats, minimal ingredients, you remove friction. You eliminate hidden sugars. You eliminate keto marketing traps loaded with processed fibers and sugar alcohols that can still trigger cravings and gastrointestinal distress. Studies examining low carbohydrate interventions consistently show that adherence predicts outcomes more strongly than perfection. The diet that works is the diet you can sustain, and sustainability thrives in simplicity. When meals are built from a short list of whole foods, blood sugar variability decreases, insulin exposure drops, and hunger signals stabilize. Fewer spikes mean fewer crashes. Fewer crashes mean fewer impulsive decisions. Research on habit formation demonstrates that repetition in stable contexts strengthens neural pathways, making behaviors automatic over time. When breakfast is eggs and lunch is beef and dinner is salmon, the cognitive load disappears. You are no longer negotiating with yourself at every meal. You are executing a system. Systems outperform motivation every time. Motivation fluctuates with mood, stress, and sleep. Systems remain steady. The shocking truth is that much of the food marketed as healthy contains added sugars under dozens of different names. Food labeling analyses reveal that consumers routinely underestimate their sugar intake because it hides in sauces, dressings, snack bars, and even so-called health foods. Complexity disguises risk. Simplicity exposes truth. A plate of steak and butter contains no hidden agenda. A carton of eggs does not require a chemistry degree to decode. This clarity reduces metabolic guesswork. Clinical research on dietary compliance shows that diets with fewer rules and clearer boundaries produce better long-term adherence. When you know exactly what is allowed, stress decreases. And stress itself is a metabolic disruptor. Elevated cortisol, the stress hormone, has been associated with increased abdominal fat accumulation and worsened insulin resistance. By simplifying food choices, you reduce not only dietary chaos but psychological strain. And that matters. Inflammation, insulin resistance, and metabolic dysfunction do not develop overnight. They accumulate through thousands of small decisions compounded over years. Simplicity interrupts that accumulation. When you consistently choose whole, zero-carb, or near-zero-carb staples, you eliminate processed seed oils, refined grains, and added sugars that research links to inflammatory pathways and oxidative stress. Over time, biomarkers shift. Triglycerides fall. HDL rises. Fasting insulin improves. These are not cosmetic changes. They are internal repairs. The beauty of simplicity is that it scales. It works during busy weeks, travel days, stressful seasons. It removes the excuse of complexity. And in a culture obsessed with novelty and endless options, choosing a narrow path may feel restrictive at first, but physiologically, it is liberating. Because when food decisions become automatic, when blood sugar becomes stable, when cravings quiet down, you gain back something far more powerful than dietary variety. You gain consistency. And consistency, repeated over months and years, is what transforms blood markers, body composition, and long-term health. Not hacks, not trends, just simple, repeatable choices that allow your biology to finally operate the way it was designed to.